we're going to begin reading Don Quixote de la Mancha. This was written by Miguel De Cervantes Saavedra, and what you guys will need to do is read through with me on this PDF file, and we will be having a Don Quixote reading journal to go along with it. So when we do have questions to answer, I would suggest you have another Word document so you can answer those questions. And then there are a few parts where I need you to draw something. So you will have to just draw that on another sheet of paper and take a picture of that and scan that in. But we'll start off with reading about who Miguel de Cervantes was. And you will need to read through this yourself. I will just give a summary on this video of who he was. Miguel de Cervantes was born in 1547 in Madrid, Spain. And he was the fourth of 7 children. His dad was deaf from birth, and he was a surgeon. So if we looked in the mid-1500s, being a surgeon wasn't all that. It was not a good profession. It was probably good that he was deaf, so he didn't hear his patients as they were operated on. And they bounced around quite a bit trying to get better work. Cervantes loved to read. They don't know how exactly he was taught to read, but it was probably a relative, or it may have been by a Jesuit missionary or something like that. Okay? He had some failed attempts at trying to be a writer, an author, and when he was about 23, he joined the military. All right? He was in a battle where he was wounded. He had some serious injuries to the chest and the complete maiming of his left hand, so he couldn't really use his left hand. But despite that, he was still a soldier for several years after that. Then in 1575, him and his brother tried to go back to Spain, but their ship was taken over by a group of Turkish ships, and then he spent 5 years as a prisoner slave, tried to escape several times and didn't make it. So then finally in 1580, he was released from prison, and he tried to then become a screenplay writer for theater, and he wasn't very good at that either. So then he went back to the military with the Spanish Armada and was like a tax collector. But some things went down, and he ended up in prison again, and that's where he began to write Don Quixote. So in 1605, the first part was published, and it didn't get him rich, but Don Quixote became the world's first bestseller and has been translated into more than 60 different languages. All right? And then he published a second part of it in 1615. But then he passed away in 1616 in Madrid, and he's buried in an unmarked grave. So he never saw the wealth or anything of his story. It really took off after. And Don Quixote deals with an old man who loves to read stories about knights, and this man, there's a picture of him, decides he's going to have his own adventure. So right now in your journal, I want you to answer, what experiences in your life have impacted, changed, or influenced you? This needs to be about a paragraph, okay, explaining that. And then we won't wait on the video for you guys to do that. You will need to do that, like I said, in your time. And we're going to start reading our story here. You're not going to understand every single word. That's okay. I would suggest that you open up a tab of SpanishDict.com, your online dictionary, so you can go back and forth to it for things that you know. You're not going to understand every single word, but try to pick out ones that you do and use your context clues. On the right-hand side, you will see bold words. It's like a glossary. So it gives you a translation or another meaning. It is in Spanish, but this is just going to challenge you to find the correct answers. So when we're reading, we need to identify who is talking. And right at the beginning, we're going to have a narrator, And then we need to find out who's the main character. And there's a thing, carácter versus personaje. In English, we say who's the character, who's the main character. But in Spanish, carácter refers to personality. And personaje is the person. Who is the one in the story? Okay? So we're going to start off reading this first little section to introduce us to Don Quixote de la Mancha. And follow along. En un pueblo de la Mancha, de cuyo nombre no quiero acordarme, vivió no hace mucho tiempo un hidalgo. Nuestro hidalgo se llamaba Alonso Quijano. Tenía muchos años y era muy delgado. Don Alonso poseía un caballo flaco, unas tierras y una casa muy grande. El hidalgo vivía con su joven sobrina y una criada. So what did that say? In a little town of La Mancha, which is a province in Spain, whose name I do not want to remember, lived not long ago an hidalgo. So un hidalgo is a nobleman, somebody that inherited lands and money, and they didn't really need to work. Our hidalgo was named Alonso Quijano. That's our main character. He was very old and very skinny, very thin. Mr. Alonso possessed or owned a skinny horse, some lands, and a very big house. He lived with a young niece and a servant girl. And that's the way we're going to start into Don Quixote and reading. And as we go, for those of you that are remote learners or if you miss class, I will be doing videos like this, some other ones where it's live action as we go through. And you will need to keep your reading journals along with them. And we will dive into the world of Don Quixote.